let's get the group 1 parts out of the way. These are the ones near the USB connector, Ferrite bead, the Varistors, etc. So the Ferrite bead is an unmarked part that's kind of got a gray color and its surface looks like a bunch of granulated bits. This is the Varistor. It's black on top with no marking. And then we have a 1 microfarad capacitor. It's a kind of a square one in its package size, a little bit dark brown. And then there's a 22 ohm resistor, and these ones are marked with a 2, 2, and a 0. So you would read that as 22 and 0 zeros, making it 22 ohms. Then there's the Polyswitch. This is a self-resetting fuse. It's kind of an odd package because it's got a castellated hole at the end, which means it's a semicircle, and there's only plating in the semicircle. So you can't solder up the side of this thing. You can only solder into that middle bit. So let's go ahead and put a little bit of solder down on one pad of each of these components. Let's start off with the ferrite bead. Now in its packaging, the ferrite bead should have a capital B on the back, and that's how you can tell which one it is. It's a little bit bigger part than the other ones, and it's kind of got this gray granular surface to it. So that's how you tell which one is the ferrite bead. So let's tack that in on one side. There's the ferrite bead in place, and now we're going to put the Varistor in, and a Varistor is essentially an ESD protection device. And now I'm going to grab the second Varistor, place that one down, and I'll go around and I'll position each one roughly. This is the 1 microfarad capacitor. It's a square one, and it's a bit of a dark brown. The capacitors are slightly different shades of brown, so you'd be able to tell them apart. There's the 22 ohm resistor. Let's grab another one of those. And then the Polyswitch. Now the Polyswitch is only going to solder in the center area, so you can't get a good fillet up the entire side of it, only in the castellated hole area. So now I'm just going to try and center things a little bit better. You don't really need to do this. I'm being a little bit fussy here, and it's actually turning out to be more trouble than it's worth. A part is considered to be placed when the component leads are fully on the pad. Then it'll probably be an acceptable according to a commercial soldering practice. I'm trying to get it totally perfectly centered to look really nice. So I'm trying to touch up some of them. So here's a Polyswitch coming in, and basically all I'm going to do is touch the solder in the middle there, because that's really the only area that gets soldered. Some of that solder will wick in underneath and connect the component to the circuit board. And I pushed down a little bit on there and reheated it to make sure that it was mounted flat on the circuit board. Now I'm going to go around and I'm going to finish off the other side of all these components. And again, you can see I'm trying to put my soldering iron into the joint between the component lead and the circuit board pad, and then I try and feed the solder into the joint, not onto one or the other. And there you have it. That pretty much finishes off group 1, which is the parts around the USB connector.